Hi, I'm Natalie Mullen, former people pleaser and queen of doing way too much, turned holistic life coach and wellness educator for purpose seeking women of color and allies. Welcome to From a Full Cup. On this podcast, I teach you how to use the 12 pillars of wellness to discover your purpose, uplevel your well being, and create the life of your dreams because we all deserve to be fulfilled, and you simply can't pour from an empty cup. Through candid conversations, insightful interviews, and motivational nuggets, you'll feel inspired, empowered, and supported as together we navigate this thing called life, holistically and with your well being at the center. If you're committed to personal development and you're ready for more, you're in the right place. Now let's get started. Hey, y'all, welcome to another episode of From a Full Cup. I am so glad you're here. This episode is almost in complete contradiction. Okay, not complete contradiction, but maybe half contradiction to my last episode. And just in case you didn't hear that episode, basically I was explaining that my energy was being affected by my podcast and just my capacity and time has really shifted. Raising a toddler has completely changed my life and everything that I know. So, anyways, I decided I needed to make some changes. And so, one of the changes I said was that I was no longer going to do solo episodes. I was just going to do interviews. And I was only going to do solo off the cuff episodes, which are my Monday episodes. But the thing is, I really like my Thursday solo episodes. That's how this podcast started. I didn't even have a plan to do interviews, that just kind of came along the way. And I think if I take the solo episodes away, I'm going to be sad. And I don't want to be sad because I enjoy doing this podcast. So I thought about it and I was like, nope, I have to undo that decision. So here I am with a solo episode. And I've thought of some ways that I can try to make the episodes a little bit easier for myself. But all that matters right now is this is what feels good. And honestly, I'm just going to navigate this as I go along. I just think I'm in one of those seasons where I'm giving myself a lot of grace. There is a lot on my plate, and I'm not using it as an excuse, but I'm also just saying, Natalie, it's okay. You don't have to have things perfect in this season. And I'm giving myself that compassion, that grace, that allowance for things to not look so perfect. And this is like my form of self love. So if you're in a season where your capacity is just limited or it's different from the previous season, it's okay. As long as you are living a life where you fulfill, sorry, as long as you are living a life where you feel fulfilled and you're working and striving towards your purpose and just making an impact and contributing in whatever way you can, even if you're not doing as much as you used to do or normally did in the season before, that's okay. This episode is about spring reset and just getting back to that idea of wellness. Before we get into today's topic, I do want to do a wellness check. And this is the time to just check in with yourself. How are you feeling? How are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10? What was the day like for you? And when you think about that, are you happy with that number? Are you a bit disappointed? Just be honest with yourself. How do you feel? When we think about our wealthy life, and wealthy is always WELLTHY, we're thinking about designing a life where our wellness is intact just as much as our success. And so we are pursuing the things that make us happy and fulfilled because they're in alignment with what we actually want out of our lives. Okay, so let's go into today's topic about a spring reset. Coming out of winter, a lot of people are eager for a shift. You almost need it. Nature energetically shifts to bring about spring. It's a time to cut off bad energy, dead vibes, and bring the birth or rebirth of new things. And spring always offers the perfect opportunity for a fresh start. And so if you ever feel like you're in a bit of a funk, it's really good to just pause for a second and say, well, what season am I energetically in?
how do I feel? And I definitely feel like I came out or am coming out of a winter season where there was a lot of things that were just kind of dead or in a slump, not there was no vibrancy, no life, you know. And so when I look back at last year, I did a lot for my business last year, and I did a lot for my podcast. I did a lot of public speaking, a lot of workshops, a lot of interviews, a lot of coaching sessions. It was just a lot. And at that time, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt like everything was going really well, but something kind of happened in the late fall where I just ran out of steam. And to be honest, I'm still in recovery mode, and I definitely in a much better place than I was last fall, but I don't feel like I'm fully at the energetic level that I would like to be at. And so I keep asking myself, what can I change that can support my well being in a positive way so I can feel more in alignment with the kind of person I want to be, but also how I want to feel. And one part of that is just about keeping my frequency and my vibe high, because I think when you are energetically a high vibe, that's what you attract around you. And that is definitely what I want for myself. And when we think about it, if we think about what's happening in the economy or what's happening with job security or the lack thereof, or just happening with different things that are happening in the world geopolitically, like there's a lot going on. And sometimes that can be really heavy to absorb. And it kind of enters into your energetic space and atmosphere, even if you didn't want to. And I think that's what happened to me. I think things have been kind of creeping in, and it's almost like my energetic field has been warped or infiltrated, for lack of a better word. So it's either that I need to put myself in a bubble or I need to escape to a more calm, peaceful, aligned mental space and energetic space. So still in the process of figuring that out. But when we think about this season of coming out of winter and heading into spring, there are a lot of challenges that people are encountering at this time. So we think about stress from work, stress from relationships, and also just the daily responsibilities of life, such as chores, cooking for yourself, groceries. Like these might seem like basic things, but they can be very overwhelming and taxing for some people, and then just leave you feeling drained. On top of that, if you have poor sleep habits, if you have unhealthy eating patterns, or maybe you have a lack of physical activity, this can further compound the issues. So what happens is we find ourselves feeling stuck or overwhelmed or just burnt out or simply like uninspired. And so if that is the case, that's a really good sign that you might need a reset. So some of the biggest challenges, I think, one is if you feel constantly fatigued or lacking energy. Now, you have to kind of pay attention to your body and how you feel because obviously this might be an indicator of something deeper within your body that's happening. And so, of course, you should always go to a medical professional, whether a doctor or a naturopath or whoever, and see if there might be something internally that's impacting your body. Even working with like a nutritionist or a dietitian, like all of these things might be helpful. But in general, if you just feel fatigued and lacking energy, that might be a sign for a reset. Another is if you're experiencing increased stress, anxiety, or just irritability. Like you might just be moody and cranky and you're not really sure why. Maybe you're snapping at people. Maybe you just feel a little bit more sad than normal. That could be a sign for a reset. The third is if you are struggling to maintain a healthy routine. And when I think of healthy routine, I just think of the basics. So sleep, food, water, and movement. Okay. So if you're struggling to kind of maintain a routine that involves all these things, you might need a reset. And then the next one is, if you're finding it difficult to stay motivated, like you start one thing and then it's just like, oh. man, you lose the momentum, you lose motivation. You start something else, you lose the momentum, you lose the motivation. And the last one is if you just feel disconnected from yourself, if you just feel off, like you're not really attuned with what's going on with yourself and what's even going on with other people in your life, whether your friends or your family members, coworkers, you're just kind of coasting through in your own little bubble. That could be another sign for a reset. And it's just interesting because as I read through these, I feel like I'm experiencing a lot of these, which is why I just knew that it was time for me to do a reset. And so this podcast episode is as much for me as it is for you because sometimes we just have to be aware of what's going on and recognize when we need to make a change in support of our well being. So if you felt any of those things, it's all good. Now's the time to just hit the reset button and just realign, right? Like sometimes we just get a little bit off course, and so we need to recalibrate and just have a moment to reset. When we reset, one thing that is important to do is just take account like what is happening, how do we feel, and are there any specific things that might be contributing to how we feel? I also think another good thing to ask yourself is like, has anything slipped? Meaning, have you stopped doing things within the last while? I have a daily goal of 12,000 steps, and I was really good about getting it. And once in a while, I didn't, but I would work really hard. I was obsessed with my Fitbit, and I went on vacation in February. It was actually a work trip, but it was like vacation too. And we went to Mexico. We were at this all inclusive, and I don't know what happened because we were only there for 4 days, so it's not a long time. But when I came back, things just shifted. For some reason, I stopped doing my 12,000 steps. My exercise routine got messed up. My water drinking habit got messed up. I don't know why, but that glorious 4 days in Mexico at the great resort that had the amazing espresso bar, it just threw me off. And it took me a while to realize like that was kind of the main event that threw me off. And so I've been really trying to get back. I've been doing this last week, I've gotten my 12,000 steps every day, and that's felt great. Like just that one small change has made me feel so much better. And I've been working on drinking more water again. Again, another thing. I wasn't even, my water bottle was literally like on the floor behind my desk. Like, I don't know what happened. I was just not drinking water at all. Or I was just having like a bottle here, a bottle there. I was like, no, I actually went out, I bought a water filter. And I was like, let's get back to it. And so again, these are just things that slipped. These aren't new things that I'm doing. These are things that were a part of my regular routine that I just kind of dropped and let go by the wayside. So if that is you, before you think about adding new things to your life or to your routine, just think about things that you did before that you enjoyed, but maybe have slipped and you like to do them again. And so now I'll offer you some practical strategies of things you can do when you're looking for your own spring reset. And the first one is to try a detox or a cleanse of some sort. I think that having a detox is a perfect way to flush things out, and it doesn't have to be from your body, but it can be. So if you feel maybe you just feel backed up, or you feel lethargic, or you don't have a lot of energy, you can look at different kinds of cleanses or detoxes and see how, you can just rid your body of toxins and just things that have built up in your body. But you can also do other kinds of detoxes. You can do a friend detox. Like sometimes there are some negative people or just overbearing, or maybe their energy's a lot and you just need a break from them. So sometimes you just, hey, I'm on a friend detox from you. I mean, you don't have to let them know, but you just take a break. You can also do a social media detox. I always recommend this one. I feel like I did this for many years and was very, very healthy with it. But sometimes you just take a 2 week break. Look at all of the celebrities that talk about, they took a year off. I think Selena Gomez took 2 or 3 years off of social media only her team was posting. She said how it did wonders for her mental health, right? So social media detox can be great, or just a tech detox. Maybe you take a break from screens after work and you just decide that you're going to be out in nature. You're not going to be using technology. You're going to be reading books. I was speaking to a girl the other day. She's in grade 8, and she was just telling me how she loves books so much, and she thinks she said she feels so sorry for adults because adults don't get to read books. They're too busy on their screens. And I was like, wow. Sometimes it's the young people, right? Especially children. They they have a different perspective, and I'm so glad that she hasn't fallen for the trap of technology yet. And she loves her paper books so much. And it's just a reminder, like there are ways that we can detach from technology. And so the next tip would be just to consider the energetics. Like, how can you release trapped or negative energy from your body and have more balance? There are different things you can do, but one of them is Reiki or acupuncture or massages or just other modalities that seek to promote healing and balance in your body. Now, Reiki and acupuncture are more aligned to the energy, but I like to say massage as well, just because obviously with the physical touch, they are still moving things around in your body. And I think that energy is still connected to our physical bodies. Now, I'm not an expert in this, so feel free to disagree with me, but that's another thing I stopped doing. I used to get massages every single month, and for whatever reason, I just haven't gone for the last like 3 months. So I booked an appointment for next week, and I'm really excited to just get back into some of the things that I felt were really supportive of my well being. All right. The third tip is to set intentions. So, setting intentions is literally just about sitting down and taking some time to reflect on what do you actually want? What do you want in your life? What do you want for this next season? What do you want in terms of how you spend your time, in terms of how you feel? Are there certain wellness or self-care practices that you want to do? Are there certain passion projects or dreams that you want to go after? Are there certain people that you want to form deeper connections with and really foster those relationships? When you have clear intentions, it can really help guide your actions and then help you keep aligned to the goals. So there's no point in having this goal, but you don't even have the intention of what does this goal look like? What does success of the goal look like? What does it feel like? So that's why it's really important to create intentions from the beginning. The fourth strategy is about embracing movement. And like we always hear about this. So I want to offer a little bit of a different perspective to match your movement to the energetic vibe that you're going after. So, as an example, in winter, I am like a sloth. I'm like I'm like a bear. Like I'm in hibernation. I do not have a lot of energy in the winter. I do not like the winter. So the kinds of exercise I do, it's a lot of slower paced things. It's a lot of low impact because I'm just forcing myself to even do anything. But now that I'm coming into spring and summer will soon be upon us, I want to ramp up my energy. So I'm going to do different types of movements. So, for instance, kickboxing. I love kickboxing and I also love weightlifting. So I have more energy to do those kinds of things in the spring and summer. But in the winter, it's like, no, no, no. It's like doing the bare minimum. It's like walking on the treadmill and maybe light, at home workouts, stuff like that, because I just don't have the energy. But I'm gonna start kickboxing again because I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to do some punches, some kicks, get my vibe up because that matches the season I'm going into. And the last tip is to nourish your body. And again, this is a tip that we would hear a lot. So what I would encourage you to do is maybe just consider how can you eat lighter and or how can you reduce your eating window? So when I say eating lighter, just lighter foods. So more vegetables, more fruits, less heavy carbs. Just think about how it feels on your body as we're thinking about lightness as we come into spring and You know, I'm just thinking heavy meals that weighs you down. And we want to be light in this season. So how can you bring lightness in? Even in terms of colors, how can you bring bright colors and vibrancy into your food in this season? And then with reducing your eating window, I find this has been very helpful for me. It's very similar to intermittent fasting, or basically the same thing, but actually not really the same thing. But anyways, just shorten your eating window. So let's just say you normally wake up at 8 a.m. or and you normally have breakfast right away, and then you have dinner at 8 p.m. So that's a 12-hour eating window. Instead, why don't you try, if you wake up at 8, try not having your breakfast until 10 a.m. And you can still have your dinner at 10 p.m. And now all of a sudden, that's a 10-hour eating window. So when you shorten your eating window, it tends to improve how you feel because you don't have so much food in your body to weigh you down. It's important that you're still eating good quality food. And it can be a little bit iffy at first, but if you just keep doing it, you tend to actually get more energy. It's something you can look into on YouTube. There are so many videos about this. I will try to link one in the show notes. Um, I think her name is Lindy. I can't remember her last name right now, but she has fascinating videos just on shortening your eating window and how it can benefit your body. All right, so those are the tips for today. For the journal prompt, I want you to reflect on any energetic imbalances that you may be experiencing in your life. And I want you to ask yourself, are there any patterns or habits that are blocking the flow of the energy? And like, how can you address those imbalances to provide more energy, more vitality, and just a better sense of overall well-being? So for a color check, I mean, when I think of a spring reset, this can impact so many areas of your life. So I already talked about how it can impact your food, your body, but also just think of other things. Like if you've been in a funk, it's probably affecting your relationships. People haven't been so excited to necessarily be around you because you're not on a high vibe yourself. It might be impacting your rest because you just feel stressed. It's affecting your sleep. And so, by having that reset, you can really just take care of your physical well-being. And maybe it's even affecting your sense of purpose. Like if you're feeling a funk, if you feel disconnected, you don't feel fulfilled, you don't feel joyful, you don't feel like you're thriving, it's hard to feel like you are making an impact and really fulfilling your purpose. And so if that's what it is, I want you to look at the 12 pillars of wellness that are on the show notes. You can always just download that assessment. Just do it for yourself. Audit your own wellness and see if there are any areas where you might need to work on right away. And for today's affirmation, I invite you to say it with me. I am vibrant, alive, and filled with infinite potential. All right, that was a short one, but I hope that it was still impactful. And in closing, I want you to decide that it's time for your spring reset. And it doesn't have to be all at once. It can just be starting with one decision, like going to sleep an hour earlier, or making an appointment, or just doing one thing that's going to tweak and improve your well-being. I've shared some of the things that I've done, and I have a whole bunch more that I'm going to be working on. But again, there's no rush. It's not about doing everything all at one time. It's just about making a small tweak and then pausing at the end of the week and saying, do I feel better because I did these things? Yes or no? And then that informs the next decision of the week. This podcast is a labor of love, so I would greatly appreciate if you can leave a review on this podcast on Apple Podcast and just share it with a friend or share it with somebody you think it would be helpful. Or you can even take a screenshot and send it to me on Instagram. Just tag me. And I'm offering complimentary coaching sessions right now. It can either be one of the Dream Big sessions, or it can just be a confidence or wellness coaching session. And that is free to you as long as you tag me in a picture of from a full cup so we can spread the word. I hope this has been a helpful episode. I love talking to you guys, and thank you so much for all the feedback that you give to me. It really does encourage me to keep going. And until next time, continue to serve yourself, your loved ones, and your community from a full cup.